back today doing episode 5 of our fourth war reshuffle and starting a little mini series of my own. Today I got Daigo again with me. Say hey, everybody.
Hello everybody, how's it going?
So if you guys can't tell, this is a video that I did a long time ago.
Galaxy far away.
Here we go with the jokes again. Here we go. So like this is a video that I've done before, and I'm starting this new mini series of my own and going back and reviewing some of the first battle videos that I've done in the past. Ones that I feel like are worth redoing. And this one definitely took the cake. I mean, you can ask Daigo. I was still, even rewatching that past video and then coming back and discussing it with him, we were like, you know, really confused on who to give this fight to. And Daigo even came up with a certain win con for one of the sides of the fight. So
a pretty nifty method.
Pretty intuitive. We're talking about Obito versus Itachi and Sasuke, specifically in the War Arc. Rinnegan Obito, White Mask, no Jubito, just to make that clear, versus Edo Itachi and EMS Sasuke. EMS Sasuke, what we're going to use specifically is, you know, just overall in general, EMS Sasuke, you know, right before he gets to the Rinnegan, like, so all of his feats prior to him getting the Rinnegan, just to, you know, make it the most fair. Versus two versions of Obito. We're going to do Rinnegan Obito with all the Jinchuriki and the Bijuu and whatnot, and then one without it, so just 2v1.
These are three very interesting fighters. Obviously, I think Obito is the strongest one out of the three, if you just compare 1-to-1. But when you take into account the Bijuu at the same time, I honestly don't think they're going to pose too much of a threat against Sasuke and Itachi. Because when Naruto and B were fighting against them, they didn't have the same jutsus that they could use to counter them very easy. Like, mainly Amaterasu. If Obito chooses to make them Bijuus out of the gate or something like that, which I don't think he would, but if he did, it's very easy to just nail them with Amaterasu, and we saw how fast the Eight-Tails was consumed by it when Sasuke fought against it. So Obito would probably just use the Jinchurikis, or maybe version 2. And even if he does so, Itachi and Sasuke have the Susanoo. They still have Amaterasu, which we've established before, me and Lightning, that they are probably not going to dodge an Amaterasu. Maybe Han, because he's fast. Maybe Yagura with that mirror thing of his. But other than that, Amaterasu seems to be a pretty good way to just counter the Bijuus. And Obito would certainly use them as bait, probably, to try and get an opening in Kamui, either Itachi or Sasuke, or even hit him with a wood-style attack, or a Rinnegan Rod, or something like that. The problem would be Obito, obviously.
Yeah.
Obito himself.
Yeah.
But the Jinchuriki would just be the pawns that Obito would use, sacrificing them in the battle to get an opening, like what would.
Yeah, and not even counting that, like, they were talking about, there's the Jinchuriki. Something I didn't even think about what we were talking about before the recording is that with Itachi, you could argue that Itachi would have knowledge on the Jinchuriki's abilities since they've captured all of them anyway. So, like, surprise factor of all their abilities in the Jinchuriki form may not even play into this. But even if that wasn't the case, Bijuu forms, like you said, Amaterasu is a GG.
It's a hard counter. That's the problem of you being too big. And it's probably one of the reasons why Kishimoto makes Sasuke pretty much never use Amaterasu when there's a massive thing in the battlefield. Like, he just kind of forgets Amaterasu. Older, yeah. Massive 10 tails. I want to use an arrow for some reason.
Yeah.
Instead of just Amaterasu in the thing. Anyway.
No,
Obito would be the problem here, not the tail beasts, I would say.
No, I mean, even if it was the Jinchuriki forms or the Bijuu forms, Obito can do the Kamui teleporting game where he can just kind of teleports around the battlefield looking for an opening to, you know, pull them with Kamui. Or maybe if in Itachi's case, you know, steal a soul with Rinnegan. Although he's
The human path.
yeah, although if he is trying to control the Jinchuriki, I doubt even because like we know that, like, you know, when he's controlling the Jinchuriki, he's reluctant to use.
They're the 6 paths.
Yeah. He's reluctant to use any of Rinnegan's abilities, but even more so if they're in the Bijuu form, they're probably gonna be even, you know, harder to
Consuming
control.
a lot of chakra as well.
Yeah.
And Obito seems to want to conserve his chakra as much as he can in that fight.
Yeah.
But it's still very difficult for the brothers. Their win con is going to be much more difficult because And Amaterasu is dangerous, but Obito can phase through. But if they hit Obito with it, I guess he can also use the Predator Path to absorb the flames, and so they don't hurt him so much. The option here would be for Sasuke to use one of those blade-like Amaterasu shards, I guess you could say, and pierce Obito when he is not phasing. Then again, this needs to be very well timed, I guess you could say. And Itachi and Sasuke would have to figure out that Obito materializes whenever he's about to touch someone and attack. Which, if Minato figured that out in like 30 seconds, I'm pretty sure Itachi would be able to do the same. And with Sasuke there, Sasuke by himself would also be able to figure that out eventually and pretty fast, but with the two put together, I think it would be very easy for them to deduce how Obito's powers work on the surface. They probably would take much longer to figure out that both sorts of Kamui are connected to the Kamui dimension, because without the link with Kakashi's own Kamui, I don't think they make that connection very fast.
Yeah, we had talked.
Maybe eventually.
Yeah, me and Daigo talked about this before we started recording, because like if we're operating on the assumption that this is Obito with the mask on, Itachi's not going to know that it's Obito under that mask. I'm going to assume he's not going to know it's Obito behind that mask. So, like, and this is like very specific. Like Sasuke might actually be the one to figure it out, because he's seen Kakashi's Sharingan pattern when he's in his Mangekyo. So if at any point Obito changes his pattern from his regular Sharingan to his monkey Sharingan, and Itachi or Sasuke picks up on that, he's like, you know what? That looks familiar. Actually,
I've seen that Sharingan before.
So, I mean, so like, if it's Obito with the mask, then it might take longer for them to deduce like how Kamui is linked, and so the only information about Kamui that they're gonna have is the fact that he materializes when he goes to suck them in, which may be all that they need to know. You know what I'm saying? The only other benefit to it would be that if one does get sucked in, then they soon find out that, okay, well, now his body is connected to each plane that he materializes to, and on that note, we also need to address a couple elephants in the room. We had just talked about this before we recorded, but one of them is that a lot of people would counter-argue against Kamui, because the data book says that Kamui is a sealed dimension. There are some people who have argued against it, which I understand the arguments, but there are also feats to counter-argue. The argument that I've seen against it is that, could you just reverse summon out of there? Like, for example, if Sasuke gets sucked in, could he just summon Iota and use reverse summoning out of Kamui? I get the argument, but the thing is, and now look, me and Daigo were joking about it earlier, and we joked about this in the past video of ours, that Obito was kind of careless when fighting Minato, because, I mean, he was fighting Minato, so why was he not aware that he could just teleport to the kunais like he knows he can do? But
yeah, he was 14-year-old to give him a break.
I mean, but like, honestly, Obito is meticulous. Obito is a really smart character, so I don't think he would have like tried to resort to sucking in Minato or Naruto in the War Arc if he felt that he could just reverse them, because he obviously knows they both have the summoning jutsu. So why go through the trouble of trying to pull them into Kamui if he didn't think that the reverse summoning jutsu would work? You know what I'm saying?
And, I mean, Minato even has the flying Raijin, which you can teleport away. If the reverse summon works, I guess you can also argue that the flying Raijin would be able to teleport Minato from the Kamui dimension to the real world dimension. So, it's probably not going to be the case. If you get sucked in, the only way to get sucked out is by another Kamui.
Yeah, I mean, that is true. Like Minato went out of his way to make sure he didn't get teleported, and he still had kunais in the Leaf Village that he could teleport to if he did get sucked in. The other elephant in the room is the location argument that I was presented to a while ago, because the argument that I was presented was, if, say, for example, one of the brothers gets sucked into Kamui, and you know, they're just in there. There's no the argument that there's no guarantee that whenever Obito faces his body part, it's going to be in the exact same place that one of the brothers was sucked into, because, you know, you could say that, well, they were sucked into a completely different place. Kamui's a big dimension, this and that. Which,
it's not the case though.
Well, the thing is, like, okay, so assuming that they're fighting in the same battlefield, I imagine it'll be the exact same thing that happened to Kakashi when he got sucked in and countered Kamui. Like, Kakashi got sucked in, Naruto went to hit him. Kakashi was in the exact same plane at the Kamui dimension where Obito's torso is at whenever he faced through the attack. I don't see it being any different if all three of these combatants are in the same battlefield.
Yeah. The same thing happened for Naruto's Shadow Clone when he unmasked Obito. The same thing happened for Kakashi's kunai when it nicked the mask. The same thing happened for Naruto's Rasengan when it hit Obito's arm. They were in the exact same spots in the Kamui dimension. And you brought up the counter argument for the 5 Kage Summit's Kamui thing, which was Sasuke and Karin should have seen Torune and Fu getting sucked in, because, well, they were sucked in by Obito as Sasuke and Karin were in the Kamui dimension, but Sasuke and Karin were sucked into Kamui in the 5 Kage Summit location, not on the bridge, so they wouldn't be at the same place. And then Obito just Kamuis them back into the real world at the bridge as well, which makes sense. Like, they get sucked into from their location in Kamui into the real world where Obito is, but they weren't sucked into Kamui at the bridge like Fu and Torune, so they wouldn't necessarily meet each other.
Yeah. So I'm going to assume that if Obito pulls any of them in, they're not getting out. It's a GG. And on the other argument that if Obito does suck one of them in, they still can counter, because Obito will still be in the same quote unquote vicinity as the other combatants. So yeah, I just wanted to address those elephants because those were like some of the bigger, like, you know, that don't get me wrong, they were great counter arguments. They're great arguments. I could see, you know, why and how people were thinking in that way. But this is just what we think about those particular subjects. So now that we got that out of the way, so with the Bijuu and with the Jinchuriki, honestly, like, me and Daigo agreed that like the Jinchuriki would probably put more pressure combined with Obito's arsenal on the two brothers than the Bijuu would, because of reasons we've already established.
Yeah, if they manage to launch a Bijuu Dama, for example, before they get taken by Amaterasu or something like that, they can do a lot of damage to a Susanoo. They can probably destroy a Susanoo, especially Sasuke's without the Aramir. And that could be a pretty good opening for Obito to come in and just get them. Also, let's be real here, Han, in his base form, sure he was enhanced by the Rinnegan and the Sharingan, he managed to kick Casey and Naruto pretty bad. So, like, some of those Jinchuriki are pretty powerful in their own right, without even the Tail Beast form.
Oh, well, you know what? Something else that we forgot to mention, and I don't know how much this will, like, help them against Itachi and Sasuke specifically, but their vision being linked.
It would be helpful for sure. Like, it would make Obito much more aware of the battlefield.
Mm-hmm. I think with the Jinchuriki, they just allow Obito a lot more pressure to put on them to be able to come up with the plan to pull them into Kamui. But, you know, Daigo brought up a point that, like, if Obito tries to suck them into Kamui, you know, they can just activate their Susanoo and, like, blast them out of their melee range if, you know, if they needed to, because we've seen the Susanoo is quick to activate, you know. And so, I mean, unless Obito is just like going like, because it's really like iffy, because like we've also talked about this before, Daigo, one of our past videos, that like Obito, whenever he tried to suck into Minato the first time, he was like chatting, you know, he said something to Minato a little bit before, and then he immediately says like, okay, as soon as we touch, he's done for. And assuming if he was correct about this, if he was correct in assuming that as soon as he touched Minato, he's going to be able to pull him into the Kamui dimension just like that, I don't know.
So there's some time that you need to take into account.
Yeah.
And if the Susanoo manages to activate before Kirin hits the ground, which is supposed to be even faster than an Amaterasu, for example, I think they would have time to activate it before they get completely sucked in. And as we've seen Sasuke using it against Danzo, when Danzo was about to strike Sasuke with a sword, the Susanoo just kind of expands and launches whoever is in the vicinity outwards. So the same thing would happen to Obito, because he has to materialize to suck them in.
Oh, actually, no, another point that I just thought about too is like, if like he decides to try to suck one of them in, they could launch Amaterasu right there if they were quick enough. I mean,
that is true, but I don't know if the Amaterasu wouldn't be sucked into Kamui as well, so maybe.
Yeah, that's fair.
I think the Susanoo would be the safer option here.
Yeah.
just to make sure they are not sucked into Kamui.
Something that so two counter arguments about the whole Kamui on its own, the phasing. Real quick, I'll say something that on mine real quick, and then I'll give it the mic to Daigo about what he came up with. So for me, when it comes to the Kamui pull-in, Itachi isn't really massively known for using shadow clones like Naruto and Minato are to an extent, but he can use them. And I thought that like he might pull a bait and switch on a one or two shadow clones to go to Obito. And I don't know if Obito would be aware that Itachi can detonate the clones on command. So if Itachi's clever enough to devise a quick tactic and try to get a clone sucked into Kamui real quick, he could like pull the Konan move and like have them thinking that he's gonna suck the real Itachi or just a regular clone in, and then just detonate while Obito's pulling him in. So,
and you can't really tell shadow clones apart from the original, so it's a pretty good plan if Itachi manages to covertly do that.
And before anybody says that's crap, remember Obito was surprised whenever he hit one of the shadow clones from KCM Naruto. He's like, this one. Oh
yeah,
wait,
he got him masked because of a shadow clone.
Yeah, so
he got fooled by that. So I can definitely see Itachi managing to do so. And I don't think a detonating shadow clone would kill Obito or anything, but it would damage him at least. Kind of like what Konan did to Obito when she exploded on Obito.
Yeah. Well, and depending on where the fight is at by this point, if Itachi and Sasuke are still in pretty decent condition, that's going to be even worse for Obito. So, but now I'll pass the mic to Daigo, and I'll let you tell everybody what the epiphany that you came up with.
Alright, so this is a very interesting win con for Itachi and Sasuke that I thought about. And it really relies on Sasuke's ability to control the dark flames of Amaterasu. Which is, they're fighting against Obito, right? So maybe Itachi use the Totsuka blade, which I guess we haven't spoken about this, but we're pretty sure Obito would be able to phase the Totsuka blade. It says it's an immaterial sword, but Itachi is not going to hit Obito because Obito is not in this dimension. The sword is immaterial, but it's still in this dimension, so Obito is going to phase through that.
I was going to say, just let everybody in case wants to argue about that. Like, yes, the sword itself might be ethereal and it may not be physical, but it's still physically in the same plane as Obito. If Obito dematerializes his body, that part of his body is leaving the plane. So,
yeah, so for this strategy to work, Itachi can use a Totsuka blade or some other jutsu. Itachi and Sasuke have pretty good teamwork, so they would definitely come up with something. They just have to make Obito phase his body, like his thorax or abdomen or whatever, maybe even the head. And then Sasuke uses a small shard of Amaterasu and leaves it inside of Obito's body as he is phasing. It doesn't have to be very large, but if Sasuke controls the Amaterasu with his Inferno style, he can leave the shard there, inside of Obito, until Obito has to rematerialize. Because when Obito is using Kamui, it doesn't matter where the attack is coming from, it doesn't matter if Obito is aware of the attack or not. If it's going to hit Obito, Obito is going to phase through that without even wanting to, if his Kamui is activated. So, if Sasuke leaves an Amaterasu shard inside of him, he's going to be phasing through that. Like, his internal organs are going to be in the Kamui dimension. However, if he materializes back again to touch someone and attack in any way he wants, or if the 5 minutes of Kamui expire, then his body is going to rematerialize, and it's going to be affected by the dark flames inside of him. And then Sasuke can even use his Anton to essentially expand the flames outwards, out of Obito's body, and kind of explode him from inside with his Amaterasu. He sees something kind of like that in Naruto vs. Sasuke, the final battle, when Sasuke is like those blades. This is only in the anime, but I think it's a really cool scene. And we see Sasuke doing similar things, being able to create like blades in the manga as well with his Amaterasu. So I think this is a plausible situation.
Sasuke gets compliments all the time about his control with Anton anyway. So I'm like, especially if this is in the scenario without the Bijuu, then the other Bijuu won't be there to add pressure enough, while,
to distract Sasuke, Obito leave. Because Obito cannot use his Kamui to teleport away if he has an Amaterasu shard inside of him, because he has to materialize in order to use that. And so Sasuke can just, expand the dark flames, and that's GG for Obito.
Likewise with the Predapath too, because you had asked the question earlier, it's like, could he absorb it while it's inside of his body? But I'm like, he still has to materialize that. We both came up with the conclusion that he still has to materialize if he wants to absorb the black flames. So that's not an option either if the scenario you just pitched happens.
Yeah, and then I guess he can just take care of Obito that way. I don't see him absorbing things with his Rinnegan as he's phasing. And even if he rematerializes, if Sasuke is fast enough, I don't think he's even going to be able to absorb the fire from within. And even if he does so, he's still going to take some internal damage, right? Because there's like fire inside of his body.
Yeah.
That's going to be really bad. Like, regardless if you manage to absorb it or not, and regardless of Obito's regeneration, which he has a pretty good one, it's Amaterasu inside of you. That's going to at least damage you a lot, even if you absorb it. And then Itachi and Sasuke can try to capitalize on that. So I just think it's a very interesting way that Sasuke and Itachi could use to defeat Obito.
All right, so now before we wrap up, like, here's some things we need to like discuss about this fight. And it's things that like were presented to me in the last time I did this video. So one, the Geromazo. Does that play a part in this substantially or not? Well, I mean,
no.
I'm almost kind of like
Terasu.
I was gonna say, like, I mean, I'm not trying to sleep on the Geromazo, and I'm not trying to sleep on Choji and Choza either. But those two on their own were doing a pretty decent job. For what it was, you know what I'm saying? I'm not trying to, downplay anybody's performance, but like he said, Amaterasu, or worst case, Tosca Blade. And I mean, it's target practice for Itachi.
I mean, even Kakashi was going to take care of the Geromazo if their Kamus weren't linked. So there isn't anything Obito would be able to do with the Geromazo if they had Amaterasu.
Heck, I wouldn't even think Obito would risk having the Geromazo out there for fear of, losing,
being destroyed.
Yeah. So the other thing is too, wood style. Wood style, Habashirama cells, is that that definitely does help in a fight like this. But I mean, don't get me wrong,
Obito's wood style is not that powerful.
I was gonna say, like, don't get me wrong, like, Obito's wood style is decent, but I honestly would argue it's just a couple pegs above Yamato's wood style. Like, it's not fairly substantial like Madara's or whatever. In fact, I think the most useful thing he has with the Hashirama cells that would be the biggest benefit for him is his healing. That's it. But with the attacks that Itachi and Sasuke can dish out, like, yeah, they're not like overwhelmingly physical. I mean, outside of the punches from the Susanoo, but they do a lot of crazy hacks damage. Not so much like, raw physical strength.
There's also Tsukiyomi, which I guess you could argue Obito will be able to break out of it, like Sasuke does in their fight. But a lot of people say the Rinnegan makes you immune to ocular genjutsu, which is not the case. Kakashi puts Obito under an ocular genjutsu when they're into the Kamui dimension before they fight for real. So it's not immune. Like, Kakashi was able to affect Obito that way, even though Obito broke out of it afterwards.
Yeah. Well, also too, like,
but if Obito can't resist Tsukiyomi, I mean, then he loses, because I don't really see Obito winning the battle against the mental anguish he's gonna suffer in there with Itachi, putting him in like a 72-hour torture scene. Obito is not exactly the most mentally strong character, I would.
No, he's not. No, and I brought this to Daigo too, another like contributing factor on the Tsukiyomi argument, and it's up to interpretation. It's how you feel about this sentence that he said to Sakura, but because there is a couple ways you can interpret it. But when he says to Sakura that he almost lost himself with just that one Rinnegan, I've always interpreted that he meant to like his mental state. And if that is the case, that might help Tsukiyomi beat Obito, because Tsukiyomi's already a tough as nails jutsu on its own. That's not even counting if you have anything else like mentally weighing you down at all. or even physically weighing you down at all. It's gonna help Tsukuyomi even more so. So if Tsukuyomi is landed on Obito, I actually would probably give it to Itachi to be able to win that one. But I mean, Obito is aware that Itachi has Tsukuyomi, so I feel like Genjutsu would probably. I mean, all things considered, Obito's no Genjutsu slouch either. So I think I don't think Tsukuyomi is gonna be the battle ender, but if it is launched, I do think Itachi would probably have the advantage. And then the last thing we need to cover is Izanami.
Oh, Izanami. Honestly, to, usually I just kind of ignore Izanami as a possibility for Itachi most versus battles, because usually it's just not gonna work. But in this case, I don't know. I think Obito is the type of character that would fall for something like that.
I think because okay, we discussed this in our old video with Obito versus Itachi. This specific Edo Itachi versus White Mask Rinnegan Obito. We covered Izanami, right? We said that we weren't really sure if Itachi would be able to put enough pressure on Obito by himself to set up Izanami.
Right.
But now that he has Sasuke backing him up, I think Itachi has a lot more liberties to be able to do so.
Especially when the Bijuu are not a factor, when it's just the 2v1.
Yeah.
And I mean, I guess you can also come up with the argument that if Obito knew Izanagi so well, he probably would at least know about Izanami's existence, so he would know what to look for when, Itachi is setting it up. But Itachi, especially if he thinks he's fighting against Madara Uchiha, will do it very covertly in a way that won't really show Obito that he is launching Izanami, because you would figure, yeah, Madara Uchiha would know what Izanami is, so I have to be very careful and subtle about it. So, I mean, if Obito gets caught, then yeah, that's definitely a win for Itachi and Sasuke.
Yeah, because well, I would say that Itachi would probably can just get the kill, but honestly, if he is able to get Izanami on Obito, he probably wouldn't even kill him. He'd be like, honestly, that would benefit us, Obito being a good guy, because I mean, eventually in order to break out of Izanami, you'd have to be
Like Kabuto.
yeah. So,
so he would talk no jutsu. It would essentially be Obito post talk no jutsu.
yeah.
He'd be a good guy.
Yeah.
I guess.
So wrapping up, I think with the Bijuu, I think Obito still does win. I'm kind of leaning on this 6, maybe 7 out of 10. Obito wins with the Bijuu.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. Yeah, I think Itachi and Sasuke can still win, I would say, but it's much more difficult because of the added pressure and all that. But
On the opposite side, though,
if Obito makes a mistake, I'm in. I think that's gonna be a GG for him.
yeah. On the opposite side, though, I think I was convinced otherwise as we were talking, because you could ask Daigo. I was telling him I was very 50-50 for the most part, but I was still giving it to Obito. But I do think, I don't know. I think Itachi and Sasuke are lucky enough to maybe get out of it alive by the skin of their. I still think it's high diff. I'm on the side of it's a 6 out of 10 in Sasuke's
Yeah, I agree.
favor. So I know I'm still gonna
Because
go ahead.
Obito fought against 4 very powerful opponents at the same time for a pretty long time. Naruto, Kakashi, and Guy. But Naruto and Sasuke, they just have so many more hacks and things like that. I mean, Kakashi has Kamui, sure. But the arsenal, especially Itachi's arsenal here, it's very difficult to deal with. And, the kind of way that I came up with, I think it's a very interesting way. If Sasuke maintains that Amaterasu instead of Obito, I think it's pretty valid. So it would be very difficult for Obito to deal with those two. And you have to also take into account that they fought against Kabuto. And Kabuto at that point was one of the most powerful characters in the history of the verse, I would say. And they were nerfed by the circumstances of them not being able to kill him. So they had to fight in the most difficult way possible, and they still managed to come out on top. And they wouldn't be, quote-unquote, nerfed that way against Obito. They'll be able to, go, full force against him.
One thing we did forget to bring up was the Uchiha fan, but I mean,
Obito wasn't even that good with it, to be honest. He just kind of I don't know. He used it to block Shuriken.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I could like.
Madara was using that to absorb mini Bijuu bombs and redirect them, but Obito, hey, did he ever use a jutsu with it? That's not like in a video game.
The only thing I remember him using it for, he used it in conjunction with Kamui, which I thought was pretty clever. Whenever a guy tried to like hit him, and he kind of just he made.
Oh, when he trapped guy, yeah.
So I mean, maybe
Like, he kind of used it like a. It was pretty much a fake out.
Yeah.
With a fan, he like phased the fan through guy, and yeah. I mean, I don't even think the fight would be very melee, anyways. When it, like, sure, Obito would try to get that, but I think Sasuke and Itachi would try to fight at mid range most of the time. So, I don't think the Gunbai would make much difference here.
yeah. Dang, I love this verse battle video, but I hate it as well because it's so tricky. But yeah, I think don't get me wrong, I'm still like really on the fence about it, even in the 2v1, but I'm still kind of giving it to Itachi. By the skin of their teeth, I think they win. You know, I think if anything, like Itachi will go out of his way to sacrifice himself to make sure like he gets all the information he needs to get on Obito's abilities, so Sasuke can take the win at the very least. So I think. I don't know. I think a worst case, like one of them gets out alive in this fight, if that counts as a win con. But either way, it's a high diff on each side. But there y'all have it. There's
Fair.
episode 5 of our Fourth War reshuffle, and technically the second entry of my new Was I Wrong series. I don't think anything was really different. I think I still said Itachi and Sasuke still win. The first scenario was different this time around. But yeah, so. There's episode 5, y'all. I hope y'all enjoyed it. Daigo, thank you so much for being on our channel again.
Thanks for having me.
Be sure to tune in till the next episode. Let us know what you guys think about this episode. Let us know in the comments what other verse battles we should do on the Fourth War reshuffle. And while you're at it, why don't you also comment on any of the videos I've done in the past that you feel like is worth redoing. I'll take a look at them and see what you guys say and think it over. But thank you all for watching all the way to the end. If you have, make sure you like the videos if you haven't already. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Go subscribe to Daigo's channel if you haven't already. Thank you all for watching. Till the next one. Lightning Blade.